Welcome to This Week in Hastings Headline History, where we take a look back at what was making news in Hastings, Florida over a century ago. These are stories directly out of the pages of the Hastings Herald, which was published weekly in the early 1900s. So sit back and enjoy as I share with you a few of the stories from this week in 1919. Hand badly burned. Police officer Raphael Landreau considers this his unlucky week. A few days ago, he arrested two drunken hobos at the railway station after they had been taken from a train, and in bringing them to jail, the thumb on his one hand was dislocated. He had the injured hand dressed on Thursday, and after leaving the doctor's office and reaching the street, he struck a match to light a cigarette, overlooking the fact that the bandage on his hand was saturated with alcohol. In a second, the bandage was ablaze and his coat sleeve also in flames. In trying to beat out the flames with his uninjured hand, it was badly burned. He called for help, and a young man rushed from a store and started to beat the blaze with his cap. Mr. Andrew instructed him to wrap the cap around his hand and smother the flames. The instructions were obeyed and the blaze was extinguished. Officer Andrew's hand was badly burned before the blazing bandage was removed. Bicycle thieves at work. Bicycle thieves are operating again despite the fact that Circuit Court is in session. On Saturday, E.E. Bird left his bicycle in front of his home on St. Francis Street and returning to the street 5 minutes later discovered a thief had taken advantage of his absence to appropriate the machine. Union Bakery sold. J.W. Coffey, president of the Federal System of Bakeries, was in the city on Saturday and closed a deal for the purchase of the Union Bakery on St. George Street, owned and operated by Mr. and Mrs. W.H. Toe. The new owners have already taken possession and have discontinued the restaurant, which was operated in connection with the bakery. For the present, the equipment used by the Union Bakery will be utilized, but the federal equipment is on the way and will be installed as soon as it arrives. Visible ovens will be used for baking, and the public can watch the process as the ovens will be placed in the windows. Circuit Court adjourned. The Circuit Court adjourned Saturday afternoon after a 2-week session, the civil suits pending against the Florida East Coast Railroad being compromised. James Masters brought suit for $50,000 in damages, alleging injury sustained through the flooding of land by rains due to a railroad embankment which prevented the water from draining through natural channels. Last spring, the rains were extremely heavy and damaged the potato crops, also corn, throughout the Hastings-Elkton districts. In the Elkton district, several farmers entered suit against the Florida East Coast Railroad Company, but only the case of James Masters was argued. An amicable settlement of all of the claims was arranged. The suits have been withdrawn. The partial eclipse. St. Augustine had a splendid view of the solar eclipse this morning. The moon made its appearance across the disk of the sun about 7:20 o'clock, and it was not until almost 1:45 o'clock that the transit was completed. Hundreds of pieces of smoked glass were brought into use, through which the phenomena was observed with a great deal of interest. Want to organize a platoon of Florida National Guard. Postmaster W.B. Leonard has received word that a member of the Adjunct General Staff will be in Hastings on Wednesday, December 10th, for the purpose of reorganizing a platoon of the local National Guard. Hastings had, at one time, the required number of signatures to get the unit established here, but some of these have moved away. Others have lost interest, and matters have been at a standstill with regard to the organization for a long time. Realizing the vital need of such an organization, it is the purpose of the Adjunct General Katz and his staff to reawaken all of these bodies and make live organizations out of them. Practical demonstration of farming machinery. Wednesday, December 3rd promises to be one of the most profitable and entertaining days on the calendar for Hastings farmers and their families, for on that date, H.S. Mobley and Miss Ada Howie, agricultural experts of national reputation, will conduct a practical demonstration of farming machinery. Talks will be made by these experts along agricultural lines, and a fund of valuable information is in store for all who attend this meeting. The demonstration will be held on the E.E. Durkee Field near the auditorium, and moving pictures of some of the work will also be shown at the auditorium itself during some time in the day. Oil $5 a barrel in 1920. A $5 a barrel rate for crude oil is predicted early in the new year following the recent advance to $4.50 for Pennsylvania grades. This 25 cents a barrel advance followed a similar advance in September. The market in 1918 was $4. Improving Seneca Farm. The farm known as the Seneca Farm on the Federal Point Road is undergoing noticeable improvement at the hands of its owner, G.W. Waller, who plans to build a house with all modern conveniences, erect outbuildings, and generally renovate this farm, which will greatly add to the value of this piece of property. Ever wonder how much prices have changed on things? Well, looking through the pages of the Hastings Herald from over 100 years ago, it's a bit of sticker shock. Let me share a few ads with you from a 1919 edition of the paper. One real estate ad reads, "Big farm bargains. Never again will Hastings farmland be as cheap as they are today. 70 acres, 50 cultivated, 2 miles out. Barn, well, fine soil for only $7,500 on easy terms." Another reads, 80 acres, 40 cultivated, dwelling, barn, garage, well, tools and mules for $10,500 on easy terms. And a final smaller lot, 40 acres, 12 cultivated, a mile out, for $2,250. And while the fishing trade has always been big in this river community, the prices sure have changed. One ad in 1919 promotes fresh oysters at 60 cents per quart, 35 cents per pint, being sold at the Hastings Cold Storage Company. High school team defeats Palatka. The St. Augustine basketball team was too strong for the team representing Palatka last night, and as a result, handed the Palatka bunch a drubbing to the tune of 47-14. The high school team was in the lead the whole game and was never overtaken. I hope you enjoyed this week's edition of Hastings Headline History. This podcast was brought to you by Presenting the Past, bringing history back to the present through historic presentations and the sale of treasures from days gone by. This episode was written and produced by me, Michelle Murillo, with the aid of vintage copies of the Hastings Herald. Now it's time for this week's musical memory when we listen back to a song that everyone was listening to over 100 years ago. This week's musical memory is from 1919 and comes from a man of many names. Charles Harrison went by a lot of names on his records, 5 that are known about. In addition to Harrison, he did recordings for small record labels under the names Charles Hilton, Normal Terrell, Billy Burton, and Hugh Donovan. The New Jersey-born tenor started his recording career in 1911 singing opera, but then switched into the popular music era. His distinct and riveting tenor caused Victor Records to advertise him as a voice in a million. Here's Charles Harrison with My Isle of Golden Dreams.
Out of the mist, lips I have kissed, call tenderly. Out of the west, the hands I have pressed, beckon to me. Over the sea, waiting for me, lonely and blue. Somebody sighs, somebody cries, I love you, I love you. Drifting in dreams, drifting it seems, back to the shore, where hand in hand over the sand we'll stroll once more. Part of my heart, no more it part, I hear her say, but with the dawn, my dream has gone astray. I hear the voice of my land, calling me, it seems, that fair Hawaiian island, my isle of golden dreams. Somehow I know sometime I'll go back on the sea, where all alone someone I've known waits patiently. Lips I have kissed, lips I have missed, whisper it seems. Come for a while back to your isle.